Here's a Bible trivia question for you. Although this is always a little bit risky in a congregation that has so many retired clergy. But I'm not going to take grades, right? So they won't blow the curve for you. What is it that is unusual, almost, not quite, but almost unique about the story of Bartimaeus? You know? He is one of only two people we know of that Jesus heals for whose name we actually know for certain. One's Mary Magdalene, everybody knows about her. There's kind of a cheat late in the Garden of Gethsemane if you put together the stories from Luke and Matthew, but Bartimaeus is the only one for whom we're told, there he is. I mean, there's, of all the people that are told, there's the centurion's daughter, there's Peter's mother-in-law, so her son-in-law has a name, but she doesn't. There's the widow's only son. There's the demoniac among the tombs. There's the daughter of the Canaanite woman or Syrophoenician woman, depending which gospel you're reading. There's the 10 lepers. There's the woman with the flow of blood. But all of those we know only by their disease or their story, not by their name. Bartimaeus is, as I say, he's almost the only one. And to be fair, even that's a little bit questionable because there's a good chance we actually don't know his name. Remember that the text tells us that he is Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. Well, that's redundant. Now, I hate to give you an Aramaic lesson in front of my Hebrew professor, but bar means son of. So to say that he is Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, is the same thing. So it's actually unlikely that that would be his first name because then his son would be Timaeus, and then you'd have Bar Timaeus, and pretty soon you'd have a Bar Timaeus. That's another topic for another day, or maybe not. But of all the healings that Jesus performed in his wandering and his preaching and teaching, Bartimaeus is one of only two whose name, or at least close to his name, we know. Why do you suppose that is? I mean, do the gospel writers have bad memories, or the oral tradition they drew from had bad memory, and that's the only name anybody could remember? Or did Jesus go around healing people so quickly that they didn't even have time to learn people's names or make a note of it? Oh my God, I can't keep up with him. I suppose both of those are possible, but it seems to me that maybe the key reason that Bartimaeus is the one who gets remembered is that he and perhaps Mary are the only ones who appear to have stayed around for the rest of the story. Remember that last line, immediately he regained his sight and followed him on the way. We don't see that happen often. There were those like the 10 lepers who once they were healed, they immediately went and showed themselves to the priest. That's exactly what Jesus told them to do, so it's not like they were being disobedient, but they didn't leave everything behind and follow him. There was the man possessed by a demon who had lived among the tombs who said, Jesus, let me follow you. And he said, no, go back to your village and tell people what I've done. So he was being obedient, but he wasn't following Jesus on the way. Bartimaeus follows Jesus on the way. Several years ago, I learned a wonderful expression that comes from our Native American brothers and sisters. Among the Navajo, when a person converted to Christianity, it was often said of that person, he has gone down the Jesus road. Isn't that an interesting way of putting it? Gone down the Jesus road. I mean, on the one hand, we have to acknowledge there's a certain sadness to it in the sense that someone has left some of their tradition behind to follow a new way of belief. So, we have to acknowledge that. But on the other hand, it is a really insightful acknowledgement that being a Christian or becoming a Christian is not merely a statement of belief or a change of mind. It's a road that we have to decide to travel, which implies, of course, that there are other roads we're not going to get to travel and other scenery we might not get to see. He has gone down the Jesus road. I mean, that's what Bartimaeus did in a way that was different from others that Jesus healed, in a way that was like the 12 disciples and like Mary Magdalene and a few others who left everything behind to follow Jesus on the way. So that's quite likely why they remembered and recorded his name. He stuck around. Okay, well, so much for Bartimaeus, although we'll come back to him in a couple of minutes. What does it mean? What might it mean in our own day and time and in our own lives to go down the Jesus road? Now, there is a sense in which many of us here have been trying to walk that road for most of our lives. We have heard about Jesus since we were children, many of us. We know more or less what he expects of us and the kinds of things he expects us not to be doing as well. All right, there's the thou shalt and the thou shalt nots. In one sense, we've been walking the Jesus road for a long time. Except, if we're really truthful with ourselves, we actually haven't been walking it all the time. Or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I doubt it. We know where the Jesus road is most of the time. We know it's the path that we should be walking, but dang it, there are a lot of rocks in that road. And where there aren't rocks, there are potholes. And it seems like the Jesus road is always uphill. And there are so many other roads that are less difficult. I suspect most of the time, and I'm being truthful about myself here, but see if this doesn't ring true for you. Much of the time we spend walking our own road while trying to keep the Jesus road in sight. We want to be close to it. We certainly don't want to go in the opposite direction from it, but it is a hard road to walk. It's a hard way to follow. And even those who got to see and experience Jesus in person, so to speak, there were only a few of them who walked the road with him. Many took detours from their own road to go see him, hear him, see the amazing works that he did, maybe benefit from them themselves. But when the time came for him to move on, most of the crowd stayed behind in their own villages, walking their own roads, hoping, no doubt, to intersect with him again at some time in the future. But only a handful walked the road with him, and one of those was Bartimaeus. A part of what our history is about as Reformed Presbyterian Christians, as Protestant Christians, is about an attempt a few hundred years ago now to get the church back onto the Jesus road, at least in the perception of those who were calling for change. You'll no doubt hear about this again at the end of October on Reformation Sunday, but this can be a little teaser. Martin Luther and John Calvin and others whose names you probably don't know had a sense that the church, that is, the Catholic Church as it existed in their time, was a long way from the path that Jesus had set. I mean, it had too much wealth. It wanted more. In fact, in those days, if you really, really wanted to be a bishop, chances are the only thing you had to do was cough up enough money and you'd become a bishop. Any takers? This may be one reason Presbyterians are allergic to bishops, I'm not sure. But, religious leaders had a lot of power, not only in the sacred realm, but also the secular realm. I mean, the Pope had armies, for crying out loud. And too often that power got misused and abused. Laypersons were not permitted to access scripture for themselves. I mean, it wasn't even in a language you could read, but if you could read Latin, you weren't supposed to. You were supposed to listen to what the professional holy people told you it said. So the reformers said we're on the wrong road, and it wasn't necessarily that they wanted to start a new church on a new road. They only wanted to pull the church that they loved back onto what seemed to them to be the right path. At any rate, But it reminds us, doesn't it, that going down the Jesus road is a lot easier to say than it is to do. Not only is it a difficult road when we do get onto it, sometimes it's even hard to know for sure whether we are on the right road. Perhaps we come to a fork, to a time of decision, and it's not always clear which way the Jesus road is going. Or we reach an obstacle in the road, and we're not sure whether we're supposed to go around it, or climb over it, or dynamite it, or whether it's a sign that we're supposed to turn around now. Or we think we're on the right road, but we're surrounded by fellow travelers who think different things than we do and see the world differently, and it makes us wonder whether we took a wrong turn somewhere. I mean, following Jesus on the way is easier to say than to do. But in a strange way, that brings us back to our friend Bartimaeus. Because remember what he said when he first learned that Jesus of Nazareth was coming by. Did he yell out, "Yo, Jesus, heal me, I want to be able to see"? That's not what he said, is it? Did he say, "Jesus, make all these Jericho people put money in my cup. I'm blind. Can't they tell? They should be nicer to me"? No, he didn't say that. He shouted out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And even after the crowd told him to shut up and leave Jesus alone, he yelled even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? That's what Martin Luther discovered or rediscovered, that it's all about God's grace and God's mercy, not about whether we always make the right choices or do the right good works or follow the correct path. It's about the grace of God. So that when our journey comes to a fork in the road, or an unexpected obstacle, or a challenge in the form of other travelers who seem weird to us, as we no doubt do to them, we don't have to solve the problem on our own. We have to shout, "Lord, have mercy on me." If I'm about to choose the fork heading east when I should have chosen the fork heading west, Lord, have mercy on me. In fact, even if I make the right choice, have mercy on me, because that means it's going to be a tough journey sometimes. Have mercy. Lord, I can't get around this boulder, so I'm going to turn around and try something else. Have mercy on me. If I'm supposed to move it instead, get my attention. I cannot make this journey under my own strength and using only my own wits. Lord, have mercy on me. Even if I do nothing but good works 24/7, I cannot save myself. Lord, have mercy on me. Once we recognize that it's not up to us alone to walk the Jesus road, and in fact, it never has been, when we see that it is God's mercy that keeps us on the journey, then we, like Bartimaeus, have regained our sight. We can't follow Jesus on the way without God's grace to hold us there and to return us when we inevitably wander off. God doesn't expect us to go down the Jesus road only under our own steam, with our own goodness, whatever there may be, our own wisdom, our own power. God is with us on the way, just as God is also waiting for us at the end of the journey. To be sure, the Jesus road is a challenging one, but it is the only one that takes us where we want to go. May the Lord have mercy on us as we seek to be faithful followers of Jesus on the way. Amen.